Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. Now this is a spotlight on a band I have been playing an awful lot lately, and that is Smokie. Now if you're in your 50s and you're from the UK, you will know that Smokie appeared on Top of the Pops nearly every other week from about 1975 to 1978. They consist of Chris Norman on vocals, Alan Silson on guitar, Pete Spencer on drums, and Terry Utley, who only recently passed away, on bass. Now they're from Bradford and they started off in the early to mid 60s under various names. I've written them down here. They were called the Yen, they were called the Sphinx, and they were called Essence. And then some members sort of morphed into another band called the Black Cats, and then the rest of them followed. So the Black Cats more or less became Smokie, and they also were called the Four Corners, the Elizabethans, and Kindness. And then in 1971 Chris Norman had some sort of infection and his voice was affected, and it gave him that sort of gravelly voice, a bit like Rod Stewart, which he's actually quite famous for. So it affected his vocal cords completely, and then in 1972 they signed to Decca. Still having no success. They had released a couple of singles here and there. I have to say that there was different band members as well that came and went. And then in 1974 they met up with Mike Chapman and Nicky Chinn, who were songwriters for The Sweet, Susie Quattro and Mud, and they didn't actually want Smokie, but they went with it and they gave them two songs. Before I go into the Smokie records and albums, I will say that the song It Never Rains in Southern California was actually written for Smokie by Albert Hammond in around 1971, but he decided to record it himself, which I'm glad he did, because I'm a huge Albert Hammond fan. So the first single they released was Pass It Around, a Chinn and Chapman song which I don't have a single, but it featured on this album here, Pass It Around. Now this is a reissue, and it's one of those reissues that they put on 3 extra tracks, unfortunately. There's a Kindness song on this, by the way. So the second Chinn and Chapman song, which opens up side 2, is I Do Declare, but unfortunately it closes side 1 in this, which I'm not overly happy about. I just wish they had just reissued the album. This is a good album. Now the Smokie sound was actually like soft melodic rock, a little bit like the Eagles, but the vocals were full of harmony and they were very layered. Now the opening single, Pass It Around, was actually quite a heavy rocker, which would have gone well with the Sweet. This album, as I say, sounds a little bit like the Eagles. There's some really good songs on it, like Oh Well, The Coldest Night, Shy Guy. Now the songwriters outside of Chinn and Chapman were Chris Norman and Peter Spencer, and then Alan Silson, and then Terry Utley. So they all wrote, but the Norman Spencer partnership seemed to be the best. But this album unfortunately sank without trace, as did the single. And then in 1975 again they released the single If You Think You Know How to Love Me. Now this is absolutely gorgeous. It's an acoustic led song. The vocals again and the chorus are layered, absolutely brilliant, and this went the whole way up to number 3. This was also covered by Pat Benatar on her debut album. So If You Think You Know How to Love Me, absolutely wonderful song. And they followed that up in 1975 as well with Don't Play Your Rock and Roll to Me. And yes, this borrows heavily from Marie's The Name of His Latest Flame, the music anyway, but it's slowed down a bit. But again, it's these layered vocals that make it sound absolutely brilliant, and this got to number 8 in the charts. On the strength of that, they released their second album called Smokie. Now the Smokie name was Smokey, but there was going to be a lawsuit from Smokey Robinson, so they had to change it to Smokie. Now this one has got the IE. This is like a reissue. The original one was EY. This is a fantastic album. It's got those 2 singles on it, plus the other Chinn and Chapman song, Changing All the Time, which is beautiful. The song Going Back to Bradford, or just Back to Bradford, is a real glammy little number written by Spencer and Norman. Julia, one of their own, is gorgeous as well. We're Flying High is actually a little bit quite proggy as well. It's a really good album, and this actually did quite well in the charts. This got to number 18, and to date it's their highest charting studio album from 1975, Changing All the Time. The next single came up, and it's Something's Been Making Me Blue, which is a very acoustic-y mid-tempo song, again with those vocals, catchy as hell, another Chinn and Chapman song, and it got to number 17. And then Wild Wild Angels, which is it's a little bit overblown. It failed to make the top 40, again another Chinn and Chapman song, but it is truly excellent. And when you talk about backing vocals, this is the one where you get the real big blown backing vocals. Really good song though, and both of those songs came from this album here, Midnight Cafe. Again another issue. This is actually a double album now because they put A-sides and B-sides on a different disc. This is a very strong album. I used to have this actually on cassette in 1978. It features those two singles. They open the album again. Poor Lady, Midnight Baby, a song of their own, could have been a huge hit single, absolutely brilliant. When My Back Was Against the Wall is fantastic. Make You Boogie is a good rocker with a bit of a groove to it. Then you have Going Home on side 2, which is quite an elongated song for them, and it's absolutely fantastic. So this one, released in 1976, unfortunately failed to chart. Then what we had 3 singles, standalone singles in a row, and they're probably 3 of their most famous ones. And you have I'll Meet You at Midnight, which got to number 11 in the charts. Their most famous song is Living Next Door to Alice, which got to number 5. Now these are all Chinn and Chapman songs, and this was originally released by New World back in about 1970-71. And then Lay Back in the Arms of Someone, which I think may be my actual favourite Smokie song. Again, a Chinn and Chapman song. Again, it's the same formula. It's soft rock, it's quite acoustic, and layered vocals, loads of harmonies, beautiful stuff. And this one was actually covered by Juice Newton. Then came a Greatest Hits album, and I had this when I was a kid, and this is fantastic, and it features those 3 singles plus all the other singles, plus Back to Bradford and Changing All the Time, so 8 singles plus 2 LP tracks. This actually did well. This got to number 6 in the charts, released in 1977, and it is to date their highest charting album. Okay, next up they had a few more singles, and the next one was It's Your Life, which got to number 5, and then they did a cover of the old Searchers song, or the one that the Searchers had a hit with, Needles and Pins, and this is fantastic as well. This got to number 10 in the charts, and those 2 featured on this album here, and this is Bright Lights and Back Alleys, and again this failed to chart, which is a shame. They had 2 huge hit singles and the album didn't chart. I Can't Stay Here Tonight's fantastic. Sunshine Avenue is a really sort of bouncy little number. You have The Dancer, and Baby It's You is a very tender ballad which features on some Greatest Hits albums. This is probably regarded as their best. I don't think it is their best. I think that would go to possibly Midnight Cafe, but it's a very strong album, but as I say, it failed to chart. These albums did well in Europe, but they didn't do well in the UK. Singles did brilliantly in the UK, and maybe not quite so good in Europe, so I don't know. But there you go, this is 1977. Okay, in 1977 they also provided vocals on Donovan's self-titled album. This is also on the Rack label, the label Smokie were on. and they do backing vocals on the song The Light, and the fact they turn it into a Smokie song, and it is really good. Then in 1978 they released a couple of singles for a few dollars more, which got to number 17 in the charts, and then they had a bigger success with Oh Carol, which is Catchy As You'll Get, which reached number 5. Around that time as well, Chris Norman did a duet with Suzi Quatro called Stumbling In, which didn't do too well over here. I think it got to about number 41 or 2 or something like that, but it went top 10 in America. And then the third single from 78 is their own composition, Mexican Girl, which was got to number 19. This is the first Smokie single to be written by themselves. Excellent song. 3 of those singles, not the Stumbling In one, came from this album here, the Montrose album in 78, and this got to number 52, so it charted at least. Again, it's a very strong album. The first song, The Girl Can't Help It, is an absolute fantastic rocker. Liverpool Docks is a really good rocker as well, and you have Petesy's song, which is a quirky little number, and you have those 3 other singles, Mexican Girl, Oh Carol, and For a Few Dollars More. So it's a very strong album. Now, they had left Chinn and Chapman and they were going their own way, and in 79 they released 2 singles, Do To Me and the brilliant Babe It's Up To You. Now this Do To Me was written by them, Babe It's Up To You was not. This was written by, I'm not actually too sure who this was written by, Macari and somebody or other. It's written by Macari and Ferris. It's got the Smokie sound, but the sound has updated for 79, and there's keyboards on it that are quite reminiscent of new wave. And the third single was San Francisco Bay. Now this wasn't released in the UK, but it was in Germany, so they were now concentrating on Europe. They were having more success there, and then this album came out and it featured those 3 singles, and now this album possibly could be their best as well, along with Midnight Cafe. The Other Side of the Road is fantastic. Belinda's a beautiful ballad. Big Fat Mama is one of those sort of 1920 songs that Paul McCartney would often do. London Is Burning is full of doom, gloom, and it's actually quite scary to listen to. It's absolutely brilliant. A very, very strong album, and there's little bits of new wave in here, especially with Alan Silson songs. Now Alan Silson would sing a few of the songs, but his voice is actually quite high pitched and high registered. In fact, it sounds a little bit feminine. He does sound at times a bit like a female, but that's why the backing vocals work so well and the harmonies work so well. But this album, released in 79, failed to chart. The next single, it was a cover of the Goffin King song, Take Good Care of My Baby. I love that sleeve with Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. This actually charted and got to number 4, and it was then released on their second greatest hits album. Now this is Smokie 14 hit singles, the very best of, in the UK. In Europe they released this same cover, completely different track listing, and they carried on after Greatest Hits and called it Greatest Hits Volume 2, so it was all the singles released after 1977. UK chickened out and sort of took the best ones from the first Greatest Hits, added the best ones from what came after, and created this album. And it is very good. It's got Oh Carol on it, like Living Next Door to Alice, If You Think You Know How to Love Me, Lay Back in the Arms of Someone, Wild Wild Angels. But there was also a new song on this called Run To Me, which is okay. It's not bad. Yeah, it didn't do anything, didn't chart at all. Okay, so after the Greatest Hits in 1981 they released Solid Ground. Now the weird thing is they put on Take Good Care of My Baby onto this, so it was on the Greatest Hits first and then it got on the studio album a year later. I think this is a really good album. Jet Lagged, which was a single, I don't have it, in different territories. It was a great little rock and roll number. I'm in Love with You is really good. Rock and Roll Woman is a really sort of catchy with a song with a bit of a Mexican feel to it. Yeah, and then the last two songs, Melody Goes On and Songs, really good. So 1981, brilliant album, but again, failed to chart. You also had in 1981 a song in Europe called Little Town Flirt. Now this is the Del Shannon song, and it's not a bad version of it, but it didn't feature on any of the albums. Okay, so where are we at? In 82 they released Jet Lagged as a single, so Little Town Flirt came out before it. Also in 82 they released another album, and this is Strangers in Paradise. Now this is their last album on Rack, and this is very good. There's no singles in the UK from this, but there was one called Yesterday's Dreams, which is very good. Love Remains a Stranger is very good. Again, it's all got the Smokie sound. There really isn't much difference between this and any of their other albums, but I will say I think as time went on the songwriting got better from all four, especially the Norman Spencer partnership, which I think was really strong with some really great songs. It's a pity that they didn't have the hits, you know, without Chinn and Chapman, because of all those bands like The Sweet and Smokie, Mud, and even Susie Quattro, I think these were the most talented as songwriters. So unfortunately it didn't do too well. And then in 1982 they also released a second album, but only in Germany, and this is called Midnight Delight. Now this was recorded around the same time in Germany as Chris Norman's solo album called Rock Away Your Teardrops, which I have never heard. I don't have it, and it's very difficult to find. So this is actually filled more with Terry Utley songs, which is weird because he would have been possibly the least prolific, but they're very good songs. He has 5 of them, whereas Norman Spencer only has 2, and I think what they were doing was to put those Norman Spencer ones on Chris Norman's solo album because it had 5. So yeah, it's a good album. It is more new wavy, and it's a slightly different sound. I think it's because Terry Utley was the lead songwriter on this album, but it failed miserably. And also Alan Silson wrote on the album for Chris Norman. There was no Terry Utley songs at all, I don't believe. So this was their last album as the Classic Four. But also in 1982 they released a single in the UK, and I know nothing about this, and I've only recently got it because I didn't know it existed, and it's called Looking Daggers, and it's only released in the UK, and it's on the Mean label, which I'd never heard of. I looked up YouTube and there's a performance of it on Crackerjack of all places. It's not a bad song, but it's the last of the classic Smokie. So in 1983 they were going over to, I believe, Stockholm to record backing vocals on one of the songs on Agneta Falskog's debut English singing studio album. And the song they provided vocals on was Once Burned Twice Shy, which is a really good song, and you can hear, you know, their vocals are unmistakable from halfway through the song onwards. It's really good. Now on their way over they decided to split up, and they did. So they did this, and that was it. They split up in '83, and that was them until 1986. Now Chris Norman was having a little bit of solo success in Germany, and in '86 they decided to get back together, but Norman didn't want to have anything to do with it, and neither did Pete Spencer. So Chris Norman suggested that they bring in a guy called Alan Barton as lead singer, and there's a picture of Alan here. Now if you kind of recognise him, he's the same guy that was in Black Lace, and here's a picture of him in Black Lace. But he did very, very well, and he started writing songs for him. Now, I do not know anything really about Smokie after 1983. They did have a hit again with Barton on vocals with Living Next Door to Alice, with Roy Chubby Brown, whenever the lyrics were changed to Who the F is Alice, which I do like. I think it's great fun, but unfortunately Alan Barton passed away in 1986 whenever his tour bus came off the road. Now, Smokie are still going, but there are no original members left. Terry Utley was the last one up until December, and unfortunately he has just passed away, so no original members. And I don't know if they're recording anymore. They have been recording throughout the 90s, and they were doing pretty well on the live circuit. No massive big hits or anything like that there, but between 75 and 1982 I think their output is really, really good. And I cannot stress enough that the songwriting of the guys in the band is top notch. It really is. It's top notch. Okay, they had the hit singles of Chinn and Chapman, which were brilliant, but a lot of those other songs on those albums would have done just as well. I think it's unfortunate that they lost success really after Chinn and Chapman left. Okay, that's my spotlight on Smokie. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to have another video quite soon. All the best now. Bye bye.